Well, that's the best introduction I think I've ever had, Amiko. Thank you very much. And fitting for today being the colour, the theme colour, which is ageless. It crosses platforms and generations and provokes response across all languages. And as Joseph Albers said, colour's the most relative medium in art. My initial response to the theme colour today saw my brain react in thinking it should look something like this. This is a work by Anjali Antawat. And I began quietly accumulating things close to me that spoke to the idea. I began reading Murakami's Colourless, Googling inventors and theories, and looking at art I'm drawn to. My favourite state, however, is pre-colour, pre-focus, when potential is allowed as sensation, the beginnings of things or the anticipation and the invitation to dive in. Closely chasing the image of Anjali's work was the reality of what my brain and work and life really look like. My mum's in the audience. A sliding scale of white to black and myriad variations of darkness and light. My interest in colour is in scale and density and, of course, in movement. Colour to me lives in relation to volume, to range, intensity, depth, impression and subtlety. I'm an improviser, and my practice is driven by a continuous stream of response and jump cutting from one association to the next. Trying to pin anything down is difficult for someone who's most interested and invested in process over outcome, and for someone who poetry is real life. So I thought I'd get all my associations out of the way and then begin again. This is a work by Austin Kleon, who wrote Steal Like an Artist. It's a fantastic book, and he contributed to the magazine I make in the early days. My firstborn's eyes are vivid green. My other children have brown eyes. My favourite colour is duck egg blue or eggshell blue. As a child I had 3 white cats, and as an adult I have had 2 black cats. I'm currently directing a show at the Blue Room Theatre in Perth. I've spent years and years in countless green rooms around the world. I love colours evoked in words that are not colours. I had an African nanny as an infant growing up in Zululand. I'm white. I had a white wedding slashed with dark grey. I had a yellow room as a child. My kid's faction colour is now yellow. I was in green and my younger brother was the captain. My 11-year-old son only ever draws in graphite or pen. His younger brother recently won a colouring in competition. Their sister paints repeated rainbows and rain and says rare Smarties taste like silver sandals. Very young children can tell you that a banana is yellow, but if the same yellow is given to them in an everyday object like a cup or plate, they often get the colours mixed up for years. And that's because colour is relative. Colour is deception. Colour's not telling the truth. You can only see colours you can name. There are unnamed and unnameable colours. I've seen the movie 3 Colours Blue, but not blue is the warmest colour. The colour purple, the clockwork orange, pretty and pink, fried green tomatoes, goldfinger, blue lagoon, black beauty but not shades of grey, single white female. My sky blue is not the same of yours. I most love the colour of the weather. This work that you just saw is an excerpt from a half-hour film by Eva Fernandez. I saw it on my way out of an exhibition at Heathcote Gallery, and it was in a very tiny little window, this film, and I walked past it and I had all my kids with me and there were feathers flying in another part of the exhibition, and I stopped and watched it and was absolutely transfixed by it. All that happens in the whole half hour is that the feathers are continually divided. It sparked an entire dance work that I created called Divided. It's such a simple film, but weighted in selection and choosing, and the idea of a commentary on imperfection and division through colour. The film is the backdrop for this duet, and as a choreographer, I'm most interested in the authority of the dancer. And though I work across art forms, the curiosity of movement invention is always the primary driver, and I trust that each artist in their own art form will meet me completely from their place. I'm deeply interested in rendering the physicality of imagination, both in movement and in words, and writing is as much like dancing to me as is the studio floor. This is a snapshot of the program notes for Divided, which I'm working into a larger text, again in black and white. I'm drawn to the spaciousness in such simplicity and want everyone to be able to arrive with the weight and tone of their own response that's already coloured by their individual experience. There's a personal navigator to feeling in all of us, and it's often most accurate only when the colour is noticed privately behind closed eyes. I did look further to find dance work that was a little more colourful in my history, but it seems there's a personal pattern in terms of dress code and costuming. This is an upcoming work that will be presented at Pika by Strut Dance as part of the Mini Move Me Improvisation Festival in November. It's called Beast 3 and is the third version of a work that I created in collaboration with dancer Pollitt. It was premiered at Venn Gallery a couple of years ago, and it's a song cycle that basically amplifies and quietens intensity. And the costumes are black and white. It seems black and white doesn't cross into all of my work, though, when I work with others. Increasingly, I've been working with emerging artists. I'm currently working with 3 ArtStart artists from the Australia Council as mentor, and each person brings with them their own body of experience, and I am responding to them. And it is a much more colourful experience than working on my own, actually. This project is with Rhiannon Newton, and it really landed my interest in drawing out the colours in people. I work at WAPA as well and teach the final year improvisation dance students, and I speak definitely one-on-one, and I'm very interested in drawing out people's individual, what they've got to say. This photo is of the checkpoint solo that I made with Rhiannon via long distance when she was in Israel and I was in Bayswater. Much of my work happens from in that a long distance perspective. It's in Judson Church in New York. And this is one of the photographs that went with it. There was a photographic exhibition. And again, I worked with her and with all of the emerging artists as much with text as I do with dance. I love the way that words can move an image and the way that colour itself without moving can move too. So, according to Apartment Therapy, the most popular colour in the world is blue. The second favourite colours are red and green, followed by orange, brown and purple. Yellow is the least favourite colour, preferred by only 5% of people. Crayola crayons currently come in 120 colours, and some have been renamed. The colour known as flesh was renamed peach in 1962, partially in response to the US civil rights movement. My informal Facebook survey, however, pulled up about 100 responses in half a day and saw that green and blue came in equally top, followed by red and purple, then 6 orange, 5 pink, 4 yellow, 3 turquoise, 2 lilac, 1 gold, 1 teal, and a few people would have chosen black if it were a colour. And only 2 out of all of those people said they didn't have a favourite colour. And I thought what was most interesting about that was the speed and the clear declaration of choice and knowing what the favourite colour was. I thought it would take much longer to think about. But it is a deeply connecting force, and it's very locating very quickly. I tried it again in my WAPA class yesterday and just asked what people's favourite colour was, and again it was a very clear declaration, and people were very happy to move in the groups into the colour groups. We're not going to do that today, don't worry. But can we get a very quick show of hands? Favourite colour: blue, green, red, purple, yellow, one, teal, 1, gold, silver, turquoise, orange, 2, pink, 1. Any others? Who doesn't have a favourite colour?
No.
Mauve. And you don't have one. But you do have a new baby. The concept of measuring, this idea of measuring colour. Yeah, the previous slide was the cyanometer, 1789. It's one of my favourite images. I always wanted to try and get it into the magazine, but I could never work out the copyright situation to print it, so I'm so happy to show it today. The work next to that is a project called Knit the Sky, and it's by Lee Redmond from Leaf Cutters, who's another contributor to the magazine. She's an incredible conceptual artist. Essentially, the deal is that you get your balls of wool, and every day you go outside and you look at the sky. And I would use a cyanometer personally, find my grade of colour, match it to the wool, knit your 2 lines that match the sky, and do that every day for a month, for a year, for years. And people are doing this all around the world. I personally don't knit, but it is incredible. If you Google it, it is fascinating. There's versions of knitted sky from around the globe. Most interesting to me is that idea of measuring in increments. Now, all of these people that have been contributing to the magazine I keep referring to is called Big Kids Magazine, and it's a creative arts publication that features the work of children and artists side by side. Big is a co-authored work between myself and Sydney-based artist and visual artist and educator Lily Blue. It began in 2010, and BIG stands for bravery, imagination and generosity. Between us, we spanned a scale of professional practice that has underpinned and provoked the pages to where they are now in 2014. One of the first major and formative decisions we made about the magazine was to print on matte paper stock that allowed the colours of the work, the artwork, to actually deepen and sink into the page and didn't deliberately pop like most kind of kids' magazines tend to do. We were very interested in drawing the reader into the pages rather than just getting that skimming, the shiny surface look. And although it took a little while to get used to, even for us, because we'd see it on the screen and it would be all shiny and glimmery and it would come back printed and kind of be... It was a different sensation and hard to get used to, but it's ready to draw on, and that was one of our primary drivers, was that it could just be interacted with straight away and torn and coloured in and worked with. The magazine actually started as a blog, and it was about the making of a magazine, and it now features contributors from internationally, from as close as artists at Paper Mountain, which is in Perth here, to as far as a very small collaborative team called Zilosol in Russia. As independents, able to work on our own terms, Lily and I have seen real changes in the way of the idea of disrupting hierarchies in art and deepening engagement through this Child Artist Response project. We launched this issue at Patterns and Pathways at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Sydney, and the cover art artist is Emma Gale and Sophie, who's 10 years old. There are currently 6 issues of Big in the world. The first 2 are completely sold out and out of print, but the others you can get online or at several stockists. This image is of the 6 editions and the free pull-out artist print that comes with every issue tucked inside. And it is quite a colourful collection. The first one is called First Flight. And the next one is Treasure Maps. The third one is Game On with Stormy Mills on the cover. Then Into the Dark with Archibald Prize winner Del Catherine Barton featured as the cover artist and her daughter Arella. The 5th one is called Seed to Sky, and it features Perth artist Rose Skinner and 2 very cool little brothers. And the last one I've just mentioned, Patterns and Pathways. This is work by the 11-year-old son I was talking about, who only ever works in pen or graphite, and he has since he was about 4, so never did so well at all the kindy and pre-primary early childhood activities where they kind of force colour and colouring in as like the be-all and end-all to a child's life. And he hated colouring in, absolutely would not. So in the end, we just said, okay, go for it. And the kid draws cartoons and things, day and night. He was our senior editor. He began as senior editor when he was 8 years old. He's now 11 and going into high school next year, and he is retired. He's recently handed over the reins to Lily's daughter in Sydney, Twyla, who's 5 years old, and she's now working with her mother on creating issue 7, Tiny Worlds, so it felt an appropriate exchange at this point. There is a spread of his work in this latest magazine. He also came up with fab ideas at team meetings, like repeat drawing a circle until you feel like a human spirograph, which people enjoyed, and drawing in the dark. So although colour would never be a theme that we would choose for Big, because we were looking to provoke open-ended responses, we did make this issue called Into the Dark. Now, under your chair, you'll find a copy of Big and a pencil. If you could get that now, that would be great. Okay, so we're going to try something very quickly. All you have to do is you're going to, with your graphite pencil, draw your favourite colour. I'll give you a few hints to start before you begin. The idea is that you're going to also draw your favourite colour in graphite with your eyes closed. So, close your eyes. Think of this colour not as the object it represents. So if it's an orange, we're not looking for a kind of a fruit bowl situation. But the idea of how this colour might land on the page, how hard you press the pencil. Are the marks made heavy or light? Are they long strokes? Are they tiny repeated little ones? Do they take up the whole page? Do they take up the top right corner? Is it tightly specific? What are these things? How does it manifest? And what is your experience of your favourite colour? So close your eyes and you've got about 47 seconds. Go. Open your eyes and look at your colour. And just tell the person next to you what colour yours is. Just show them your colour. Okay, order in the house. Could you hold your books up, please? Hold your colour up. Everyone just hold it up so I can have a look. Just hold it up so I can have a quick look. And turn it backwards so everyone behind you can see. Yours? Brilliant. Now, we were going to try a danced version of this, but I think that we haven't had enough coffee, and we might try that next time.
Put your camera away.
So, now this idea of eyes closed and the idea of colour as an experience rather than something that is in your face or pops is just a way of opening seeing. Darkness is generative, and generation, biological and artistic both, requires this amorous engagement with the unknown, this entry into the realm where you do not quite know what you are doing and what will happen next. Creation is always in the dark, because you can only do the work of making by not quite knowing what you're doing, by walking into darkness, not staying in the light. Ideas emerge from edges and shadows to arrive in the light, and though that's where they may be seen in the light, it's not always where they're born. And that's a quote from Rebecca Solnit. Big Kids Mag had its first physical launch at Chrissy Parrott's Arts last year and featured performances from kids and artists, including Sam Fox and his daughter Michaela, who did dance. And this spread in the magazine is called Grown and Growing. And what we do is collect ask the same questions and then see what the answers are. Michaela had a particularly beautiful response to the question, what kind of artist are you? And she answered age 11, a thinking artist. We also launched the Mother Artist Forum at the MCA earlier this year. the idea of children and artists side by side is grounded in the fact that we are both working mother artists, and our interest is not to diminish or reduce our professional work to engage with young people, but to work to invite open-ended responses and spark curiosity and conversation between generations to actually work side by side, and to also equally value both independent and collaborative work and both child and adult created work to expand ways of seeing art and creativity. And during the making of the magazines, we came up with what we felt was most crucial or most interesting, invigorating to our own practice, and this was coined the Child Artist Response Project, where essentially an artist responds to the work of a child and vice versa. Here we have Jacob drew this bear, he's 7 years old, and Ashley Wyatt, who's a Perth-based artist, responded on the right. She first sent back a response that was a shark's mouth coming out of the water with blood and guts, and it was so graphically violent and like completely inappropriate. It was the only image we've ever vetoed in the magazine. So we just gently sent it back to her saying, okay, you could have a rethink and relook at the work, because actually the title of this child's work was called Bear Shark, and she hadn't looked at the title. And she was so interested and so kind of disrupted in her own practice that she hadn't even noticed or taken into account the child's title of his work. And what we were interested in that is that actually the process of responding to a child's work is just as rigorous for an artist and has caused so many artists to freak out and redo their work and spend more time on it than if they were responding to another artist. So it's been an incredible process to disrupt that hierarchy and also really trigger rigour at a different level. This is another work. This is Anna Dunhill, who's an artist from Paper Mountain. On the left, very conceptual work, and what was most interesting here was that the process that was captured by the 5-year-old child, which is Twyla, it sent her into all kinds of worlds of sewing thread and painting pebbles and arranging things in space. But mainly what happened was this deepening of engagement with the actual artwork. Rather than trying to replicate, we're not interested in replication, but to say, what is the experience of the artwork? Similar to drawing a colour with graphite, what's the experience of it? Not just what does it look like? Again, Benjamin Forster is the artist on the right. An incredible conceptual artist is being exhibited increasingly now nationally and internationally, and he responded to a work by Giddon, and I think it just shows this idea of flipping what's possible on its head. And again, it goes back to the child who thought that was a very appropriate response. And the last one, this is choreographer Rachel Ogle on the left. This is her choreographic practice she sent in as an artwork, and we received it and loved it and sent it out to Michaela, who we saw in the previous slide with her dad, Sam Fox. And she spent so long, Kayla, responding. She sent back a whole picture, the why she was inspired, where she took the work. And I think that idea of provoking response is what has been driving my own practice since 2000, when I set up the Response Project. I would love here a project where all artists respond to one colour and come back with 72 different responses. And this kind of work is going on in lots of places. This is a work by artist Sophie Calais, and it's called Take Care of Yourself, beautiful pink. And what she did was that she got a breakup email from her partner, so ending the relationship. And in response to this breakup email, she sent it out to 107 female artists internationally and asked them to respond. And in this book is a collection of films, scripts, mini narratives, a play, CDs, exhibitions, songs, sculptures, text messages, all kinds of paintings, visual artwork in response. And that is a bit of an ultimate response project, I think, which is what I'm very inspired by in my own work. And another one by the team from Also, who are, I think, the most spectacular designers ever. They're in Chicago, and they designed the Big Kids Magazine website check it out. They're brilliant artists. They wrote this book together. It's called The Exquisite Book, and it's based on the idea of exquisite corpse, which is where one person draws the head and you fold the piece of paper over, the next person draws the body, fold it over, the legs, and you end up with the exquisite corpse. This is The Exquisite Book. They sent out one story to 100 artists and asked them to respond and to continue the story. And it's in chapters. And essentially what happens is that it ends up like this. And the story continues all the way through the book, but as a visual response. And this kind of work, this kind of response work is what I think is so driving for me in art practice. I'm working on a few new moves at the moment, directing this show at the Blue Room called Status Room that will open mid-October, and tickets are open, and Daisy, one of the artists, is here today. In November I'll present the Beast project at Pika, and early next year I'm presenting a new work for Fringe World with Strat Dance called C'est la Vie with Jacob Lira, which is going to be in a kitchen, and we're going to turn up the heat and then take the heat out of it. There will be knives. This idea of amplifying and reducing tone and texture, pressure, intensity is an ongoing driver in dancing. I think it's possible for everybody to cultivate a personal volume switch to intensity in their own lives, to respond and to allow things to resonate and move you, to turn yourself up and turn yourself down, to pick a colour and deepen it or lighten up, to notice movement in colour, to feel it, to experience it, to notice colour in the spaces where there are none, to say yes to light and ongoing degrees of darkness, to look and see differently, even incrementally, and to embody and share a response wherever possible and wherever not possible. Thank you.
Thanks. I found it really interesting what you said about developing a sort of volume for intensity, and the way that you might have stereotypes about colours. And I just wondered if you had any interesting experiences of breaking stereotypes of colours, or people or artists rebranding colours away from their stereotypical colours.
I think my own practice has shown definitely I'm drawn to this to the grading, the sliding scale. And I think this idea for me that colour can move, or that there is movement within a block, that nothing's fixed, and the idea that it is the most relative medium in art is what I find most interesting. But definitely this sliding scale, that actually it's not fixed and it's not telling the truth, that there's something unknowable about what really it should be clear, because my sky is never the same colour as your sky, and I think that is, once you have that slippage of what's real life and what's poetry, I think then you're in interesting arenas, dangerous arenas, but interesting, worthwhile. Anyone else?
I have two questions. First one, I heard that children don't like pastel colors. Is that true?
Children don't like pastel colours?
Yeah.
Well, my child didn't like any colours.
Oh.
So I think that every child is different. I don't think there is a broad application. No, I'm not an early childhood educator, so I can't answer that question. I teach uni and above level, but in observing my own children, I can say that yes, there is attachment to a stereotype again. So my second son is blue all the way because boys are blue and he's into that. But my first son has a yellow bedroom and his favourite colour is green, and he's incredibly assertive about colour, and it's very strong in his life, even though he only uses pen. But, you know, the other children are different. And I think that this idea of primary attaches to this thing that it pops. And also that colours only exist if you can name them. So you can see them, you can name them. And so I think it's the easiest to just teach kids those primary colours, and of course they learn that first, so they head there first. But if you didn't give them those names, I'm not sure where they would go.
Another question. You mentioned that your creative partner is located in Sydney. How did it work at the beginning? I would imagine that was difficult.
Yes, well, we didn't speak for 12 months. The first 12 months we didn't speak a word. We only worked online, and we didn't even realise, we didn't get onto Skype. We didn't work like that at all. We literally we started via Facebook messaging in 2010 or something, and then we made the first magazine. The first time I saw her was on Skype holding up the first flight, the first issue of the magazine that had just been printed in Sydney. And the printing you mentioned happened in Sydney, but we also had a go with a couple of issues offshore, and now it's brought back. But yes, it was that I'm very interested where things can happen where you don't see, so it isn't a direct interaction. And so it was incredibly driven because there were two separate professional practices driving one thing, and I think that's often where magic can happen. Unusual.
Yeah. I'm working with overseas people, and I find it's very difficult to communicate.
You might need to do some dance lessons, because I think it's to do with embodiment. I work a lot with a girl who's in a dancer, Paya, who was in Brussels for a lot of the time, and in Berlin when we were working, and I was in Bayswater. And this idea of side by side when you're a long way apart is actually fascinating to you know, the poetry in distance, and where you can't see the unseen edges and the colour in that behind your own eyes, I think is opens all kinds of doors.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do you find with your children, their colours have changed through the years? Have their favourite colours changed, and if so, yours?
Yes. I never knew what my favourite colour was. I could never answer that. I think that's why I was so interested that everyone was so clear. I've only just arrived probably this year at my favourite colour, and the kids, they're changing, because the girl will just go with whatever the boys are. So her favourite colour is now blue too. So
it's changing the mood of the children.
Yeah, with moods, but not Luca. He's green all the way. That's favourite colour, and I don't think that will ever change. Yeah. Hi?
Do you want me to use the mic, Michael?
Yeah, that's it.
Just wanted, it's probably don't want to say something here, but just wanted to quickly ask, actually two questions. Did you find that your children influenced your art?
Well, they definitely compressed the time I had to make my art. And to be honest, that is the biggest... The biggest thing, I actually cut a whole section out of this talk because there just wasn't time, about being a mother artist. And we have created the Mother Artist Forum, which is an online forum which you might be interested in, about artists working as professional practitioners. And that actually it isn't always in collaboration. That I have my own practice that is in an adult world, and that is incredibly important to me and to my work. But what has happened is that my understanding of range, if you want emotional range and an amplification of intensity, have a child. And at midnight when you're sliding down the wall and thinking that is it, and you'll never get up again. And the contrast of that, nursing a child at 4 a.m, thinking of all the other people in the world who are nursing a child in the quiet rain in winter. I mean, yes. I think that to push to push your own range and to this personal volume switch to intensity. I think that has been the biggest influence on my practice. I tell it like it is, definitely, and I have, I would say, my personal range, both my vocabulary and my imaginative, physical, conceptual worlds have definitely, the range has expanded, and so that is the direct effect of being a mother. That's the direct effect on my practice, and I think it's better for it, you know.
Yeah, just another question as well off the back of that. Did you experience any resistance from other artists when you broached the topic of working with children?
I personally had, I think I had a prejudice against working with children, actually. I'm the kind of person that's like in a coffee shop, and if I have a coffee and there's kids running around, I'm like, would someone keep them, you know, like quiet? But as my 4-year-old daughter said to me the other day, she said, "Mummy, I cannot be quiet because I am breathing and my heart's beating." And that's true. And I just looked around and went, definitely, I know where you're coming from. So, but this idea that if you engage with them as yourself, and you don't diminish your own practice or try and give them what they want, actually they will just meet you wherever they are. And that idea of being provoked both ways is what's so interesting. And I've seen it because I've run, you know, Big Kids Magazine team meetings and seen how they respond and I then respond. And we work equally. So I think that it's about holding your own practice and being open to what's coming in as well. And with the magazine, we work with artists who are interested in opening their practice and being challenged and provoked in that way. So, you know, it's rigorous, I think.
Okay, last question.
How did you seek out the fantastic children artists that you're working with? Where did you find them? What process did you do to get them on board with you?
I was speaking to a girl earlier this morning about serendipity and about meetings happening. Essentially, we followed our interest. That's it. That is the answer. Online, we found these guys, the designers, and so just wrote, really love your work. This is what we're trying to do. We don't have any money. This is the situation. We did end up getting a grant to get them to design the webpage, but then that would connect. You would find a link. It's the same as dancing, this idea of improvising and moving from one association to association. And that's what happened with the artists. You'd begin with one artist, see the work, fall into that world, it would spark somebody else. And then people have come to us as well. So we've got a lot of different communities. We have a Facebook following of nearly 7,000 people, which has happened on its own, built itself in that way, just from sharing where we actually are. And yes, artists have come to us as much as we have seeked out. Every artist we have invited has said yes, including Archibald Prize winners and people that have no time, Stormy Mills, Rose Skinner, Jackie Stockdale, big name artists that go, yeah, hell yeah, I will do that, because it comes from a different perspective. We've just asked and people have responded and followed our interest, and I think that's why it is what it is.
Thank you so much, Jo Pollitt.
Thank you.